Welcome back. It's inCINErated episode 2. We're back with 2 more movies this week that I'm going to review for you and tell you how they score on our board of scores. Last week we had Quiet Place and Welcome to Morrowind. Quiet Place got 88 out of 100. Welcome to Morrowind was at 79 out of 100. This week, if we look on over to the menu here, we've got Into the Spiderverse and The Meg. Those are the 2 movies we'll be looking at this week. We explained, if you didn't see last week's, we explained how the rating system works, how I look at these movies, and other things. So if you want to go watch that first, feel free. We'll start off with the first movie on the menu here, Into the Spiderverse. Man, what a movie. It was again, like, the first 3 movies that we've watched, there was something crazy cool in a filmmaking perspective. The first one, A Quiet Place, was the audio. The second one with Welcome to Morrowind was the visuals of the toys and the real world. This one, it was cool. Both the audio, the music was great. And this one, the visual, because it was sort of comic book-esque, the way they animated everything, and really made it feel and look on the screen. So already 2 high marks for it. Great, the look, the music. The next thing I really liked about Into the Spider-Verse was it was a different Spider-Man. You know, we've had... Now, you had the Tobey Maguire one, the Andrew Garfield one, the Tom Holland Spider-Man, all coming before this, all, fairly recently as time goes. I was alive for every single one of those. That's, what do you got at this point? When this movie came out, you had a solo Tom Holland Spider-Man, you had 2 Andrew Garfields and 3 Tobey Maguires, I think, so that's 6 Spider-Man movies. And this was another one, and it was different, and that was the cool thing. It wasn't like, oh, he gets bit by a spider, he goes thwip thwip, he saves the day. It's all over. This was like, his powers were a little different. There were other spider people, which was interesting. You got to see, just like, I guess like an alternate version of how Spider-Man could turn out. And it was, once again, they didn't go crazy into the backstory on this one. He has parents in this one, so that's interesting. Yeah, it was a different... he wasn't Peter Parker this time, he was Miles something, wasn't he? Yeah, Miles something. I probably should have written it down, but I didn't. It was cool. It was a really enjoyable story. I didn't find the story to be too short. Bad. I thought it was a great story. I thought it was a great length. I thought start to finish, it could be, I think they're going to make another Spider-Verse movie, but I think as a standalone movie, that one was a good story, a good start, a good finish. You got a great story out of it, and that's something that you don't see a lot in movies. A lot of times in movies, the story either feels too short, too long, or it's definitely just setting up a new movie, which is not bad a lot of times, but it's interesting to see a movie where it starts and it ends and you say, that was a complete story. That was something where if I never see another one of these movies, that was enough to be a story. But it still leaves you with a little bit like, but they could do more. There's something else they can do, but I feel like that story is enough to be one thing, and we could never have one again, and I think that would be good. But I like to see another one. Not saying that we should never have one again. But story-wise, it was a great story. As far as negatives for the movie, it took a minute for me personally to get used to the look of the movie. I get motion sick rather easy, and I was getting a little bit of that right at the beginning. Like, 3D movies, I can't do. They kill me, because it's just too much motion sickness. This was bordering on the edge of that. It was close right at the beginning where I was like, It's kind of hard to look at. It's spin in my head a little bit, but then once I got used to it, it was cool to look at, and I got used to it, so it wasn't like, ooh, I'm gonna fall out of this chair trying to watch it. It also started a little slow, but I don't think that really was too much of a drawback. I think, without spoiling anything, around the time Jake Johnson shows up is around the time it really picked up and started rolling, and from that point on, I think it was a great pace. The beginning was just a touch slow, but it was a new Spider-Man that they had to set up. It was something where we couldn't just start watching the movie and know what happened like we could with, like, when Tom Holland became Spider-Man, where we started and we were like, oh, we got bit by a spider, he has spider powers, his uncle died. Woo. That's all you're done. We didn't need to know all that. We've seen it 90 times. But this one, it was a little different story, which was nice, and you needed that beginning 20, 30 minutes, however long it was, to sort of roll into the story and understand where you were in this Spiderverse, I guess. All in all, I loved every single one of the characters, all the spider characters that they had in there. All the villains were good, too. I mean, there was not a character where I watched them and I was like, ooh, that's a rough character. All the other ones are good, but that one's a little bit rough. They were all... The John Mulaney spider character was awesome. The Nick Cage one was awesome. All of them great. Another thing we do on this show is I take notes when I watch the movies, and we look at how many I took, because usually if I took a lot, that means the movie wasn't super interesting. It didn't keep me in. If I took very few, which is what happened with this movie, then it means that I was sucked into the movie the whole time. I'm really enjoying it. I barely had any notes. One at the end is called it, so I guess there was something that I saw coming. It took a minute, but I've gotten used to looking at it. That was a note. 36 minutes, it's been slow, but it's picking up. So about 36 minutes in, it started to pick up, at least for me. And then, oh shit, Badass May. So, some good notes to that one. It was a great movie. I loved it. It was cartoony. It was awesome music. It was funny. It was interesting. It was a different Spider-Man. It was a different kind of superhero movie, which was cool after... Not to say Marvel's gotten boring with how they do superhero movies, because they do so many different kinds of superhero movies in their tree of Marvel movies. But this was just... it was different than anything Marvel's done, and it was cool to see that. Overall, big reveal... Time for the score. I gave this one a 90 out of 100. That is right at the edge of golden brown. Right at the bottom of golden brown there. That moves it to number 1 on the list of movies, right above A Quiet Place. I could have put it a little higher, but I decided that it was a touch hard to look at the beginning, and it was slow at the beginning. I think the beginning could have been a little bit pacier, and I would have enjoyed it more. There were a lot of great things about it, but there were a few things that I was kind of like, ugh, it's rough. And maybe watching it a second time, I think it was a lot better. The beginning, sort of getting slightly motion sick, was a little rough. So 90 out of 100, I think, is a great score for any movie. I'd highly recommend this movie. And I think a lot of people would rank it higher than I did. And that could be a reason I ranked it lower, too, because everybody was ranking it so high. Everybody's like, this is the greatest movie of all time. And I was just kind of like, I mean, it's a great movie, but I don't know about greatest of all time. There's probably a movie better than this one. So 90 out of 100, a pretty solid, respectable score for Into the Spider-Verse. That's movie 1 for today. We move on to a starkly different movie, The Meg. In fact, 3 of the 4 movies we've done so far now have Office characters actors that played Office characters. We had John Krasinski in the first one, Steve Carell in the second one, and now Rainn Wilson shows up in this movie. And I'll be honest, 75% of the reason I wanted to see this movie was because Rainn Wilson was in it. That was most of the reason I wanted to see it. And we have to start with the good parts, although there are not many of them. If you're looking to see an action movie, this one delivers. This is an action movie. And it had some pretty cool looking action. There wasn't a lot where it was like, that just looked horrible. It all looked pretty good, and the action was pretty solid. I was laughing for a fair majority of it, even though most of the time it wasn't jokes. It was very entertaining to me with what was happening in the movie, and it was one of those movies where, this is already moving into the negatives, it was one of those movies where it was fairly easy to look at the story and go, well, that's just ridiculous. I don't know how that happened, and then you're like, it seems like your timeline's a little off here, and was that supposed to be a joke? I can't even tell if they're joking at this point. It was a crazy movie. It was action-packed, sometimes not for good reasons, sometimes for good reasons. One of my cons listed here for that was just, wow, that was something. It was, like, I think maybe 5-10 minutes in, we'll look at the notes here in a minute, but I think like 5-10 minutes in, I was watching and going, am I supposed to be laughing right now? I don't know if it's a joke. I don't know. Like, it was a crazy movie, but that's something that I enjoy. So it was a movie that I did in fact enjoy it. We'll see how much I enjoyed in a little bit. It was a very, like I said, very easy story to pick apart, and I think just going to the notes at this point will be enough to tell you how I really thought about this. Like I said, the more notes I have, the less, like, sucked into the story I was. You've seen most of the notes I've taken so far are like a half page. This one is the entire front page and the entire back page. I even got so bored towards the bottom of the back page, I wasn't even writing in the lines anymore. I was just writing in different directions, because it was just, there was just so much for me to write about this movie. We'll go through and just start at the top and see what I thought about this movie from my words at the time I was watching it. We start off, first note, right off the bat. Not sure if this is supposed to be a comedy, but damn. That's, and apparently there was an insertion joke right at the beginning. I don't remember it, but, we got ex-wives, father, daughter. It stuff's going down. At some point I wrote, do phones not work? Because apparently something happened with that. Why does this guy keep asking, who are you? That was an interesting one. This kid may be the best actor besides Rain. So apparently the kid was a great actor in this one. I'm trying to pick the ones that don't give you spoilers. There's a rather large, in capital letters, no shit down here at the, says no shit, there's something down there. So apparently at some point they were skeptical as to whether or not there was something in the water. That action sequence seemed quick. There was, I forgot to put this in these notes, but I have it in these notes. The development of things in this movie developed at just a weird pace. Like, things went really fast and then they went really slow. It seemed like nothing was actually developing story-wise at the right pace. Like, everything was just like either, whoa, huh, whoa, I'm trying to keep up, but the story's just flying through, or it was like, okay, get through this point. I don't care about this anymore. Just get to the next thing. So there was a lot of that. Found the plot 46 minutes in. That's a great place to find it. Half of these notes I end just writing ha 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 after them because it was just insane. There's a Nemo joke, I guess. I wrote Nemo joke on there. And then I'd like to... This here on the back side of the page is where I made it to the halfway point of the movie. My halfway point thoughts were, is this really only halfway, which is already not a great thing? How are they going to stretch this? So at that point, I guess I assumed that the movie had enough to be an entire movie, and then just whoa was my last thought halfway through the movie. And it's another telling sign when I watch it on my computer there. So if you move the mouse, you can see how much time is left in the movie. It's pretty telling when I'm looking at it and I know when I'm halfway through the movie. That just means, like, I moved the cursor and I was like, oh my god, I'm only halfway. Like, apparently the best line of the movie was hell yeah. How many times are these idiots going to fall in the water? That was a good note. I think I wrote that note multiple times. There's another note. At this point, I write, how many times are these idiots going to fall into the water? And then you go down here, and it says, these people can't stay out of the damn water. There's a question about time, so, yeah. It ended with a stupid joke, very fitting, so... I mean, that's essential. It's I can't, like, maybe someday I'll type out these notes and post them or something so you can watch the movie with these. But I mean, this was a full front and back page of notes. That's how not interested in the story I was, just interested in how insane things were in this movie. Another note I have on here is just wow. I mean, it was a movie. It was good if you're looking for an action movie to not really take seriously. I'd highly recommend it. It was great for that. If you want to sit around with people and laugh about how insane things are in this movie, this is the movie. Like, I'm telling you, pick up this movie. I guess without further ado, the ranking on this one, I gave it a 62. That's solidly in the blackened category. It's going to be number 4 on the list. That might be high for this movie. I'm not sure. I gave it a 62 because even though it was just insane, I was laughing the entire time. Mostly not at jokes, but there were jokes that I laughed at in the movie. But for what it was trying to be, it was great. That's the reason I give it a 62. In a general sense of a movie, it wasn't as great. I mean, it's almost halfway down the scale on here. But for what it was trying to be, a cheesy action movie, it was incredible. I loved it. So, The Meg, 62 out of 100. Blackened, number 4 on our list so far. Those are the 2 movies we're doing this week. Into the Spiderverse got a 90 out of 100. It moves to... Ooh, I'm getting burpy all of a sudden. It moves to number 1 on our list, just above A Quiet Place. You got Welcome to Morrowind, number 3, and then The Meg with a 62 out of 100, number 4. Drops down into Uncharted Waters. Wink joke. Down into the blackened category. So that's this week's episode of inCINErated. If you enjoyed, let me know down in the comments, do whatever. Tell me what movies you want to see me watch in the future. If you got another crazy action movie, throw it in there. If you got something different, throw it in there. I'd love to watch any movie that you want me to watch. If it's a good movie, if it's a bad movie. If you're not sure, if you don't know what it is and you need my opinion, throw it down in the comments. I will watch it. I will tell you what I think. I'll take very diligent notes, especially if I'm not paying attention to the movie half the time. We'll get a front and back page of notes. And it'll be great. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next Friday for the last weekly installment for now of inCINErated. After next week, we're going to go to every other Friday. We're going to switch off with story time. One Friday will be story time, then inCINErated, story time, inCINErated. In such a way. Monday's show will be on Mondays. Go watch that if you've never seen that before and you found this channel because of this show. 1, that's awesome. But 2, there's a show I do on Mondays, which is maybe equally as absurd as The Meg. And it just gets you ready for the week. So go check that out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. We got 2 more movies. I'm not sure what they are. I don't think I've watched them yet. I have to watch them before I film that episode. So, thanks for watching. See you next week. I did that last week. I said cut. Cut. Cut.